Welcome to a very special holiday edition of TFL Talking Trucks. This is Thanksgiving week 2024, and we're talking heavy-duty pickups, right, Case?
We're celebrating a heavy-duty holiday by talking about big, heavy trucks.
Yes.
Which is our personal favorite thing. I feel like we've been upsizing here at TFL because you just traded your midsize truck for a Tundra.
Yes.
And we just bought this Duramax to keep our Ram company. It's got a friend now.
Yeah, so we have a Ram Cummins heavy-duty truck, and now we purchased a 2025 GM heavy-duty Silverado diesel truck, turbo diesel, big boy. But what I want to dedicate this episode to is our decision process, right?
Yeah.
Because you might be shopping for a big heavy-duty truck as well. So we kind of wanted to discuss this, some of our choices we made. Of course, some of our choices are unique to us.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because of the business we're in, making videos and testing of new trucks. But I think this episode will help you just to get a picture of the latest heavy-duty pickups.
Yeah, we'll talk about the heavy-duty lineups in general, but I think there are a lot of people that are wondering why we went for the Chevy in general and why we selected the specific truck that we picked. So all will be answered.
Exactly. And when you're talking about heavy-duty pickups, your world is a little bit smaller, right? I mean, if you talked about compact crossovers, there's like 12 or 15 different competitors in that space.
Yeah.
When you talk about heavy-duty trucks, there's really three companies that make them. There's Ford, General Motors, which has two, right?
Yeah.
Chevy and GMC.
Essentially the same truck, but...
Yeah. And of course, there's Ram.
Yeah.
So there's three big competitors. So your world is a little bit narrower, which means you can kind of laser in, focus a little bit more, and get the best truck you can.
Yeah, and there's actually been a lot of updates in the heavy-duty world in the last couple years. You and I went on the event for the new Super Duties when they came out a little while ago. And then same thing with the GM HD trucks were also updated on the more recent end. As anyone who's following the HD market knows, the Ram hasn't been updated in a while, but we are expecting to see some news on that upcoming.
Yeah, hopefully as soon as like 2 months from now, we should have a lot of news for Ram. But nonetheless, we must talk about it now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because part of the reason why we buy, there's several reasons why we buy long-term vehicles here at TFL Studios. First of all, it thanks to you guys watching and commenting and listening to us, right? You guys support us on patreon.com. You guys support us by watching our videos. That helps us. But also, we want to spend more time with these vehicles, right?
Yeah.
We usually get loans from some manufacturers for about a week or two. And that's often okay, but not quite enough to learn about the vehicle.
Yeah, a lot of times we're in a rush to try to do maybe an MPG test, try to do some towing, but it limits how much we can do because it's not just truck testing that we do here. All of us are working on all the different channels all the time, so we have to split our time between everything. And if we only have a truck for a week, then a lot of times we can only do one or maybe two big tests with it before we have to send it back. So buying something like this lets us test it a lot more extensively. But these are also, strictly speaking, useful vehicles because we have a lot of vehicles outside of trucks. We've got trailers. We need to move stuff around. We've got a company ranch, so sometimes we need the bed of a truck to haul around random materials, whatever they might be for.
Or tow trailers, too.
Yeah, 100%. So they're useful vehicles, obviously, and that's part of the reason that we like having them around, too, because having a company truck is, strictly speaking, very useful.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. So Roman and I published a video. We went to two dealerships, basically to find our next heavy duty. First, we went to a Ford dealership, Brighton Ford, Colorado. We've been actually friends with those guys for many years. And what I like about specifically Brighton Ford, Colorado, and also Johnson Auto Plaza is that they're locally owned.
Yeah.
Right? We've met the owners. We know them. You know, it's not some giant corporation sitting in another state, cross-state, dealership chain. These are people who live in our state. They understand us. That's how I feel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've worked with them a bunch.
Yeah, so that's what I like. And then we went to Stellantis/GM dealership, Johnson Auto Plaza. And there's one reason why we avoided looking at Rams. Because we've had a Ram heavy duty for 3 years.
And we still have it. Yeah, so we still have a Ram. It's still essentially the new truck that they're making now.
Yes.
We've got the older mirrors, but short of that,
Yes.
not much. And just because we bought this GM truck doesn't mean that we aren't going to buy, hopefully, I'm putting this on the record because I want it to happen, the new Ram HDs when they do come out and get updated. I think you and I both are pushing pretty hard to try and do that because that would be really great to be able to test that truck when it comes out and see how different it is.
Hey, podcast listeners and TFL Talk viewers. I wanted to take a minute to talk to you about a quick and simple way to sell your car or truck with the help of our new partner, Highroad. With Highroad's online portal, you enter your vehicle's VIN number or plate, mileage, and zip code, and you'll get competing offers from several qualified dealers in your area within seconds. You pick the best deal offered and follow through with the dealer to sell your vehicle. No more managing scammy emails from buyers on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. No more time wasted on no-show buyers. No bait and switch with a "will you take a check" excuse from sketchy buyers. Now keep in mind, these offers will be for trade-in values of your vehicle. If you want to go through the hassle of getting more for your vehicle, that's up to you. But if you want to sell your vehicle hassle-free and fast, go to tfltruck.com and click Sell Your Truck in the navigation menu. Or click on the Highroad ad at the bottom of the website if you're on mobile, or click on the column if you're on a desktop. Highroad makes it easy, and we like easy.
Yeah, our budget is not infinite, but
No.
but it is pretty large, like we said, thanks to you guys watching and listening. So hopefully within 6 months or so, we can really consider the new Cummins.
Yeah.
But first we need to learn about it.
Yeah,
we
for
still
sure.
don't know, like, are they updating the torque numbers? Are they updating the horsepower numbers?
Yeah,
Are
there's
they
been a
gonna
lot
have-
of rumors.
Yeah, are they going to have new transmissions, right? Are they going to change the interiors? What are they doing? What are they doing with new trucks? But I do know this. Currently, Ram is losing some market share, right?
Yeah.
I think it has to do with some of their pricing that they have on some of their trucks. It has to do with maybe competitive features because the bed on a standard Ram 2500, including the one we own,
Yep.
is 6'4" bed. When you look at Ford and now GM trucks, those beds are basically like 6'10" approximately. So that's only a difference of about 6 inches.
Yeah.
But when you're carrying like a gooseneck trailer behind you, hooking up in the middle of the bed, or a fifth wheel, which is popular, when you make those tight turns, every inch counts.
Yeah, and having that slightly longer bed is a really nice thing to have. Also, power output on the 6.7 Cummins is behind what Ford and GM are
And
at,
also the
especially.
efficiency is behind a little bit because of their
Yeah.
6-speed transmission.
One, especially
in the Ram.
with the Power Stroke now being at 500 horsepower, 1,200 pound-feet of torque in the high output. That's an unbelievably powerful vehicle, and it just feels like the Rams are a little behind, and that's coming from somebody who owns a Cummins. I love Ram trucks. I love the straight six, but I think it's time definitely for them to update the trucks and get them in line with these GM and Ford HDs. So that's part of the reason that we didn't go for the Ram, is mostly because we have one.
Yeah.
But also
We don't need a second one.
no, but also because we'd like to wait for the new trucks to come out.
Exactly. And that's kind of our business, right? We like testing new features, latest technologies, latest engines,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. So we went and took a look at the new F-250 Tremor. You and I, remember we tested one in Michigan when we went out to that event?
Oh yeah, we
These
really
are big,
tested
tough.
it.
These are big, tough trucks.
Well, so you on the event you actually pulled 40,000 pounds with one.
Not with a Tremor,
No, not with a not with a Tremor.
but with an F-450. Yes.
Yeah, with their very specifically set up truck to be able to pull 40,000
Very
pounds.
unique specification.
Yeah,
Yes.
very specific.
Yeah.
So you did that, but then you and I also took an F-350 dually limited, really nice truck from Michigan, from Detroit, all the way back here to Colorado. Drove it overnight.
Yeah.
That was a long drive.
It was a road trip and also kind of an MPG test. Remember that fuel tank Ford had in their dualies?
Unbelievable. We had
What is
about
it?
800 miles of range on a
48
tank.
gallons or something? Our bladders were struggling.
Oh yeah, the truck could have kept going, but not us.
Our bladders were really struggling that night.
Yeah, so we've gotten to spend quite a bit of time with these trucks.
Yeah, and then we also tested the Tremor and also their F-250 Off-Road Edition on the Ford Proving Grounds.
Yeah, the XL off-road.
Yeah, over rocks. I mean, this was some serious terrain.
Yeah.
They had us kind of drive over.
Oh, we were bottoming out on rocks,
Scraping.
going through some pretty deep mud as well. So it was cool testing. They didn't take it easy on the trucks, which is not always a given on any of these press events. So that was a good event, gave us a good indication of what these trucks are like. And then we got to bring it back to Colorado, and we've since had a couple other loaners to be able to spend some time with the new Super Duties.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Our requirements were as follows when we were searching for this truck. We wanted a diesel.
Yeah.
To what? I mean, we could have bought gasoline engines, right?
Sure.
We could have looked at those too. But I think Roman and I think you might agree, Case, is heavy duty trucks are about towing in general and long trips, right? How many trips have we made in our comments to Los Angeles and back? Probably 4 or 5 trips, right?
I mean, I've done half a dozen myself, in addition to what you guys have done, trips that I haven't been on. So we do a lot of pulling, and us being here in Colorado, we deal with some pretty steep grades. So having the exhaust brake, having the torque of a diesel, and of course the fuel economy is always welcome. So it would be one thing if we lived in a really flat area, but because we're here in the mountains, that extra torque from the diesel is more than welcome. It's worth us getting.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we zeroed in on a turbo diesel, right? The Tremor only comes, with 2 engine options, right? You can get a 7.3 Godzilla V8 gas, or you can get a high output turbo diesel Power Stroke. But that Power Stroke is expensive. The latest price on it is $12,995. So basically $13,000 you're paying to upgrade from the base gasoline engine to the high output Power Stroke.
I'm trying to go off memory here, but when initially the high output Power Stroke came out, wasn't it closer to 12?
Yeah, I think it was either 12,499 or something like that. Okay. So they increased the price a little bit. But still, it's not free to upgrade to a diesel by any means. So that's a big investment. So that's why we're trying to explain, like, how do we justify an investment to step up to a diesel? And like you said, efficiency, long trips, mountains, and towing trailers, which we've done. Because we move, side-by-sides around. We moved, power sports equipment or...
Yeah,
like
other
our
cars
skid
and
loader.
trucks. Yeah, skid loader for sure. Yeah, John Deere tractor. All kind of stuff that we load up on trailers. Plus, the tests that we do just for pulling a trailer for its own sake. Times that you and Mr. Truck do a Super Ike, and you get some heavy piece of equipment on a big trailer to do a closing in on 20,000-pound Ike.
And these trucks are capable of this.
Yeah.
Even these off-road models.
Yeah.
All right, so that was one of our requirements, turbo diesel. Then our requirement was also 4x4, obviously.
Yeah,
right?
It snows here. It's actually actively snowing right now.
It's actively snowing right now.
Yeah.
Plus, when you're on a job site, let's say, or any gravel road or campground, for example, having four-wheel drive sounds fancy, but it's necessary. Like, I remember loading a trailer at Mr. Truck's yard once, and I had a two-wheel drive dually. I don't remember what year it was, but it struggled in the dirt and mud, moving a trailer in the mud. So sometimes
even with that tongue weight on there.
Yeah, so you don't have to go off-road in order to benefit from four-wheel drive systems.
No, especially if you're driving around unladen in a place like Colorado where we get some pretty serious snow, and the fact that any truck is never going to have that much weight on the rear axle, it's pretty hopeless in two-wheel drive in the snow.
Exactly. So four-wheel drive was key.
Yep.
Also, we kind of zoomed in on off-road models because that's what we do. We do a lot of off-road videos and off-road testing. So that's why we looked at the Tremor, and that's why we were also thinking about like heavy-duty Rebel, right, from the Ram, and also the new Trail Boss. So the Trail Boss trim on the GM heavy-duty Silverado is new. So they haven't had it before now. So that's why that's another thing that drew us to it. And of course 4 doors.
Yeah.
A crew cab truck is kind of nice. We have a crew of video people, so it's really nice to bring some people along with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that and two, also to your point about the off-road trims, we do have a lot of trails around here. As much as HD trucks are not our ideal pick for off-roading, it's still an interesting thing to be able to test because a lot of people are out there buying Tremors, they're buying, Z71s, Trail Bosses, they're buying Rebels, people
Yes.
are buying Power Strokes. So people do off-road these trucks. And so if we can have the versatility of a truck that can pull still plenty enough trailer for us, but can also do some light trail running, then that just gives us more opportunity to be able to film and test more things with it.
Exactly. And a lot of people like put campers in their beds of these trucks.
Yeah.
They go out on adventures, whatever, pulling boats to campgrounds or lakes or whatever.
Yeah, we need we kind of need a jack of all.
Yeah. And that's what the truck is to me, right? It can do a little bit of everything. You know what? I was in Los Angeles and I was at this event with Volkswagen and I was talking to a lot of people from Germany.
Right.
And there's usually like a little bit of a cultural difference. Like when you talk to people like from Asia or from Europe, and they asked me like, Andre, how do you use your pickup truck? Because I just told them I bought a new Tundra V8, right? They're like, do you tow every day? Do you go off road every day?
It's never not hooked up to a trailer.
And I'm like, well, you know what? It's a state of mind.
Yeah.
To some extent. Even though I do have a boat, I pull a trailer.
Yeah.
I do go, camping. I do go off road. I don't do it every day or every week, but the fact that I helped my friend move a couch, when he needed help, right? If somebody's stuck, like today, it's snowing. If somebody's stuck, I can come up with my truck and help somebody out in need.
Yeah.
If I can go off road, it's a state of mind. Like I'm buying for the worst case scenario, right? I'm buying a truck that can do everything, but I don't need it every day. But it's hard for like European people to understand this sometimes.
Yeah, which is fair, but they are unbelievably useful, and it's the same thing for me with my truck. I have a camping setup that I put in the bed of it for the summer, so we can go out, camp out in the back of the truck, which is really nice because we've got beautiful mountains, beautiful spots to camp out here. I own a house, and so putting things in the back of the truck
Home
that I'm
improvement
buying
stuff,
from
right?
Home Depot,
Yeah.
or if I need to do a dump run of car parts that are stacking up. Even this past weekend, I was hooked up to one of our company trailers, pulling a car project of mine that has no motor in it. So they do end up coming in handy, but it can it can be a little difficult sometimes to explain.
Yeah, to somebody who lives in a big city like, I don't know, Wolfsburg or Munich or New York City, it's hard to explain to somebody saying, I drive a truck that's 22 feet long every day. It's kind of hard to explain that.
Well, you and I were in Germany a few months back, and we were chatting to some of the folks there that were from Germany.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the vehicles that we drive. And I said that I have a 5.9 liter turbo diesel, big truck on 35-inch tires. And one of the German guys laughed to his buddy and said, "It's American city car."
And he was absolutely right.
Yeah, it's funny, and I got a kick out of that. But it can be sometimes maybe hard to understand, but no, they're unbelievably useful.
Yeah.
And not even just for personal vehicles for you and I, but again, as a
But for
company
business
vehicle.
too, yeah. So those were our requirements. It had to be an off-road truck, 4x4. It had to have a diesel. Had to be heavy duty.
Yeah.
Right? And bam. So we looked at the Tremor. So this truck is quite attractive, right? The Tremor package, I think, is pretty beefy already. So it comes with a selectable rear locker. It has a few skid plates, a slightly higher ride height, specially tuned suspension, 35s. And a limited slip front differential too.
Yeah.
So, of course, if you look at their configurator, it says like $4,400 for the Tremor package on the F-250 XLT truck. But it's masking some other costs. For example, you have to pick a fancier engine, usually. You have to do, there's other things that will require you to buy.
You can't do the 6.8, right?
Right, you can't do a 6.8. There are other things that Ford requires you to buy if you're selecting a Tremor. So that $4,400 price is usually kind of masked by other options, that stack up on top of
That
it.
4400 isn't just tires and a Tremor graphic.
So anyways, so we took a look at it, and it has a high output engine, 500 horsepower.
Yeah,
1200. Yeah, pound-feet of torque. 10-speed automatic.
So specifically, the truck you were looking at, you said was an XLT?
No, the one Roman and I drove was a Lariat.
Okay.
So they didn't have any XLTs. That's the other thing, right? Usually the trucks are, we didn't order this truck, right? So the trucks that are in the inventory tend to be
sitting
more
there on the
expensive.
lot, for sure.
They tend to be more expensive. They tend to be fancier builds, and sometimes dark colors. Like color of the truck is also important to us because if it's all white, it can blend in. Like today, and in the snow, it'll be invisible.
Kind of disappears.
A completely blacked out truck looks cool, but it's hard to keep clean and also hide some of the lines of the truck. And it's also very reflective.
Yeah, there's a lot of reflections
Yeah.
that you kind of have to film around. And yeah, ultimately these trucks have to do truck things for us. They have to work, but they're also camera vehicles. They're movie cars, if you want to call it that. So we do need to spec them out such that they appear well on camera.
Yeah, so the one we drove had a sticker price of about 90,000 plus. And here's the other thing. We talked about our requirements. Those are all very expensive requirements.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Having a diesel, having an off-road truck, having, crew cab, it's all very expensive. But there have been discounts. So all the trucks we saw had certain levels of discounts on them.
Right.
So it's quite competitive out there. So I think the truck we looked at had like $6,000 or $7,000 off. So we were looking at one that started at like 91. It was closer to 85 when we were looking at it.
Yeah, which it's nice to have that cash on the hood. Definitely not a cheap truck. It's also a really nice truck.
Yeah.
To its credit.
The one we had a panoramic roof, ventilated and heated seats.
Yeah.
It was quite nice.
So again, no knocking people that want to go out and buy a really nice truck. That is a really nice truck, but it definitely, it carries a hefty price tag.
Okay, so we were impressed by it on all counts, right? And I did a video, a month or two ago, where I actually test drove a different Tremor. It was an F-350 Tremor, King Ranch.
Right.
So it was already like this Western luxury truck.
Was that the one that we saw when we were out the Model A there?
And it had a winch on it too.
Cool. Yeah, the factory winch. That's also really
cool. And it's
cool.
stickered for like 103.
Yeah.
And I called it my dream truck.
Well, that winch is also a really expensive.
Yeah, it's like a $4,000 option for the winch. But it's crash tested. It's certified by Ford.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of benefits.
Still cools.
Yeah.
The truck cools exactly how it's supposed to. It's perfectly integrated into the bumper. It's not sticking out. It doesn't look like a growth.
Yes. So I called it my dream truck because it really, if I won the lottery, I may be buying that truck, right? Because it had everything.
Yeah, and it does a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So, but that's not what we can afford as far as like the company is concerned, right?
Yeah.
So that's quite nice. So then we went to the GM store, and they had a Trail Boss. Only one though.
Interesting.
Only one, because it's kind of a newer trim, right? I think they had 5 Super Duty Tremors at the Ford lot, but only one Trail Boss on this lot.
Yeah, which makes sense. They've been making the Tremor for a while, so I'd expect more of them to be around.
So now the sticker price was lower, so that already drew us a little bit in. So here's what we need to explain what the Trail Boss is.
Yeah.
It's basically starts out as an LT, which is not, so it goes work truck, custom, LT, LTZ, and I think High Country, and also ZR2, as far as the lineup of GM trucks.
Yeah, and our truck is an LT.
So it kind of starts kind of in the lower, in a more affordable spectrum of their trucks, kind of a mainstream. But then it has a Z71, which has been around for decades, right? Z71 package is basically kind of an off-road addition to it. And then the Trail Boss is supposed to take it a little bit further. So, but I'm not super happy with the Trail Boss package overall because it seems to be a little bit more on the cosmetic side and not super functional side.
Yeah, because the Z71 already has the G80 rear locker. It's not a selectable locker like what the Tremor has, but it's
still there.
It
Yeah.
still has a rear locker, which is good to have. So the Z71 has already got that, which functionally is going to be one of the most important things. But with the Trail Boss, you're getting some cosmetic changes. You get 20-inch wheels, which is, I think, for you as well, bigger than would be ideal for me.
And I'm almost thinking the 20-inch wheel on this Silverado Trail Boss, and also the heavy-duty Ram Rebel, which also offers 20s. I think it's almost like a trend. It's that what kind of is popular in the world, and so manufacturers try to sell what customers like, right? So it's like, what came first? Was it the chicken or was it the egg?
Well, you know, which is fair. And if you want a truck with 20-inch wheels, that's fine. For us and for running trails, a smaller wheel and more sidewall obviously would be nice. And these wheels in particular, it's kind of hard to tell from pictures of it, but looking at them in person, the spokes of the wheel, the face of the wheel itself is very exposed. It's not really tucked. I keep hitting my mic.
Sorry.
It's not really tucked behind the sidewall of the tire. So I think if we sell this truck and those wheels have no scratches on them from rocks,
it would be
I
amazing.
will be shocked.
Yeah, which is, you see where I'm coming from, and I think you're the same. It has to be more functional than beautiful.
Yeah, for sure.
So the function has to come first.
And it is a good-looking truck.
I'm not saying it's ugly. I'm not saying that. It's just like maybe have an option for a different wheel, right? Have some
17
option.
or an 18 would be nice.
Yeah, some option where people can choose. Maybe a lot of people like 20s.
Yeah.
Good for them. You can buy that. But I think I would have preferred an 18-inch wheel and a bigger sidewall, like you said.
Yeah, and one with a wheel design that keeps the face of the wheel a little bit
tucked under,
more out of harm's way, because these ones, they kind of protrude out in such a way that we're definitely they're gonna get hit with rocks.
So it does have Rancho shocks, which I think is also like a Z71 type of equipment. So it doesn't have super fancy suspension, which is okay. I mean, it rides good.
It's got a skid plate and tow hooks up front.
Yeah, so the
nice.
engine is protected, the transfer case is protected, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I looked under the truck. The transmission is a little bit exposed.
And the fuel tank?
And the fuel tank is a little bit exposed. But even in the ZR2 Silverado heavy duties, AEV also has packages for that. And I talked to those engineers, and they said they protect most of things, except they decided that the fuel tank was okay without protection. It's just a matter of how much weight are you adding to the truck versus how much benefit are you getting from it.
Which is fair. We've still got over 3,000 pounds of payload.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, which is really nice to have. I think, if anything, and if we are going to be, we will definitely at least run some light trails in this truck. If we end up running trails in this truck reasonably often, maybe a set of rock sliders might be nice, because it's a long truck, and this having a long bed, even the short bed, it's not a long bed.
It's called standard, but the standard bed is, like we said, like 6 foot, 6'10" or so.
6'10", yeah. So,
which is a long bed.
Yeah, which makes for a long truck. So sliders, maybe at some point, but we'll see. We'll see how much we actually end up using it on trails.
I think we should do our proper standard test. Maybe try to do ironclads or something like that.
Yeah,
but I don't see us off-roading it often. Like you said, it's not that type of truck.
No,
right?
We're not going to do the Rubicon Trail, and that would be awful.
Yeah, that would take us weeks.
But to your point, so the Trail Boss on top of the Z71, you're getting a lot of cosmetic upgrades that look good. You're not necessarily getting tons of super functional upgrades. So I can understand why the Trail Boss package, it's interesting for us to test out, because it is a new option for the truck. And again, we want to test things that are new.
Yeah. And the tire is actually very important.
That's true.
I was actually surprised. We walk up to the truck, and I think they kind of changed their tire selections a little. It's a little bit more dynamic. And it has a BFG KO3, which is the next generation of the all-terrain tire for BFG. they're not cheap tires, by the way.
No.
If you went out and bought those tires, like right now, I don't know how much they are exactly, but they're not cheap. There might be 400 plus per tire.
Really? That much, you think?
I don't know.
I guess it would depend on the size.
It depends on the
spec of
size.
tire.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be a value. I'm sorry. I have to pick my language carefully here. It's not going to be like a lower price point because this tire is really quite capable.
And to its credit, we've already done a bit of testing with the KO3 in comparison to the KO2 and also compared to the Firestone Destinations, also compared to the Wild Peak AT4Ws.
What did you find? Because you did some recent testing with this.
So the KO3s perform really well. To your point, it's definitely not the cheapest all-terrain tire that you can get, but it's performing as well, I think, as anything that in our testing we have tested in the all-terrain space. So if you want potentially the best, it's up there. It's maybe, like you said, not the best value because at least in some snow testing that we've done, and we haven't tested yet in every type of surface that's out there. Mm-hmm. So that remains to be seen. There's still a lot more testing, but as far as snow performance, they did better than the Falcon Wild Peaks, about the same as the Firestone Destinations within a reasonable margin of error, and they are more expensive than the Firestones. So I guess it depends. Maybe you like the look of the KO3s because they do look pretty aggressive. I think these KO3s look more aggressive than the KO2s. I like the way that they've changed up the look of the tire, if that's important to you as well. Then maybe you might want to pay the extra. But one way or another, so far, it's been a really good performing tire for us. Same thing on the Ranger Raptor. Exactly.
Very similar tread pattern, KO3 on the Ranger Raptor. Different build of tire, of course.
And a very different kind of truck.
Different size, all that stuff. Because you have to remember, this truck has a gross vehicle weight rating of like 11,300 pounds. So this is not a Ranger Raptor type vehicle. It's a lot heavier, so the tire is going to be a little bit stiffer.
Yeah,
right?
load range.
It's a different construction. But KO3, and you're getting it from the factory.
Yeah.
We didn't go to the dealership and say,
swap these out.
Swap tires. No, it was available from the factory this way, which is quite impressive. And it has red tow hooks. I mean, I was sold.
Who doesn't love that?
I was sold the instant I saw the red tow hook.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's a great looking truck. This shade of silver that we ended up getting on this one,
it's called Sterling.
Yeah, it doesn't pop a ton on camera, but with the black bumper and the dark grille and the red tow hooks and
the LED
wheels,
lamps,
I think it looks really sharp. I think it's
and the other thing that was really surprising and really cool, we have roof marker lights.
Yeah,
you
gotta have
and
that.
It's an option because it's not a dually, right? Usually, if you're crossing like without the mirrors, if you're wider than 80 inches, then
you need them.
You need them, but we don't. But it still makes it look like a big
It's an HD truck. You got to do it.
Yeah, so that was already selected for us.
Yeah.
So that was nice. But let's talk about the engine.
Yeah.
Engines. Because this Duramax is a 6.6, came out, I want to say in 2020. So it's been a few years on the market. Same power rating, 470 horsepower, so a little bit less than Ford's. And 975 pound-feet of torque, which is quite a bit less than Ford's.
Yeah, especially on the high output, for sure.
On the high output side. But this is the only output that GM offers. They don't have various versions of this engine. And on paper, you would say, how can it be? Why is it so low on torque? But it's not low in real life.
Yeah, I'm not sure I hear 975 pound-feet of torque and think, wow, how does that even get up a hill? These trucks, they're fun to drive. They're peppy. They're more than peppy.
Yeah.
They're rowdy. I would say roundabout, if you give this truck more than maybe 3/4 throttle, under 20-ish mile an hour, it lights them up.
Yeah, it squirts the tires and it gets up and moves.
Yeah, if you really wanted to, you could burn the tires right off of that truck.
You could, which are very expensive tires.
Yeah,
we don't really want to burn them.
It's a lot of power. It doesn't really need any more power. We're all about having more power Because again, especially we're up in the mountains, we end up using quite a bit of the power. At this point, unless you're towing the absolute maximum capability of a 3500 dually, it's not likely that power is going to be your limiting factor even up here, but it's still nice to have. I think a lot of times when we drag race trucks, when we drag race with trailers, or when you guys time your acceleration on
the mountain, yeah.
Sometimes we get the comment of people asking, why does that matter? Trucks aren't supposed to be fast. Why are you drag racing trucks? And that's fair. It's not a sports car, but when you're hooked up to a heavy trailer and you need to merge on the highway, that acceleration is important. This truck has plenty of it.
And especially, like you said, when you load it to the maximum.
Yeah.
That's when you can really tell what's happening. Or like, the I-Gauntlet I-70 towards the Eisenhower Tunnel, it's 3 lanes wide. Sometimes there is a very slow semi-truck in the right lane, and there's a lot of traffic.
Yeah,
you need to step out,
move.
and you need to pass that semi. And if you don't have a lot of power, you're not going to be passing them very fast.
Well, and there are several trucks that we test at their maximum capacity where you are on the Ike pretty much the entire way up.
100% throttle
100%,
the entire time.
And sometimes not able to maintain the speed limit, which, you can do a little under the speed limit and be fine, but still, just as far as having a powertrain that can keep up with what you're trying to put it through, it's nice to have some power in reserve, like you said, if you need to make a pass. Also, just if you have to be 100% throttle for...
And we're talking about like dualies pulling like 35,000 pounds.
Yeah.
That's the use case for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This truck and what it's capable of towing, its limiting factor is not going to be power output. But still, that power is important. If you're almost 10 minutes at full throttle going up I-70, pulling your maximum towing capacity, that's going to be hard on the powertrain.
Yeah, and that's a testament to the engineering, right, that Ford, Ram, and GM puts into it, because you have to have enough radiator, enough, coolers.
Yeah, transmission
coolers. You need all that cooling to be able to kind of handle those types of conditions. And really, the other kind of hit in the armor of this GM Trail Boss 2500 is that the payload is excellent, but the tow rating is a little bit lower than Ford's, right? And once again, we're not splitting hairs on every pound for towing, because it's kind of rare that we would pull 18,000 pounds or 19,000 pounds.
Most of what we need to tow is not that much.
It's like our use case is usually between like 10,000 to like maybe 14 at the maximum, right? That's just what we are doing.
Yeah.
So if it's a matter of 19,000 versus 20,000 pounds on this truck, Ford, GM to Ford, that's not a huge deal to us. But 20,000 pounds looks good on a billboard.
Yeah, for sure.
So when that Ford is advertised versus GM advertised for this particular truck, that bigger number is important as a marketing term. But in real life, losing 1,000 pounds of towing capacity, I don't think is a huge deal for us.
No, because this truck is still going to have plenty of capacity towing capability for what we need to do with it. Like you said, maybe 10 to 14,000 pounds. And some of you out there might be thinking, well, if you're towing 10,000 pounds, then you could do that with
a half ton.
Yeah, with some full-size trucks. And that is true, but I think what both Andre and I would recommend, and especially you, given that you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, is that especially if you're up here in the mountains, once again, brought it up many times already, but it is a huge component in our buying decision for a truck. Because we live in such extreme terrain, if you're getting close to the maximum capability of what a truck is able to do, if you have a 10,000 pound trailer and your truck's tow rating is 10,000 pounds, you're going to be pushing it doing that up here at elevation. In fact, a lot of companies, I think Ford explicitly says that you need to...
it's for EcoBoost engines on Ford.
Yeah.
They actually derate, you're supposed to derate your weight, so it won't tow as much at 11,000 feet above sea level as it would at like 4,000 feet above sea level.
So the tow rating that they're quoting to you is at sea level, and we are not at sea level.
Right.
So if what you need to tow is getting close to the maximum capability of a certain truck,
you need to watch out for that, basically.
Then you might be in the category of user that might want to upgrade to the next size up so that you've got some wiggle room there to not be pushing the truck to its absolute extreme to be able to move that stuff.
And some trucks behave differently slightly at max load versus normal, like just every day on laden.
Yeah.
Because the suspension compresses, there may be a little bit of wiggle, introduced when the suspension is fully compressed. Some manufacturers deal with that perfectly, but it's not, it's not across the board. And there's another component to this discussion is that if let's say your Chevy 1500 is rated at 10,000, okay? And you're pulling 10,000 pounds frequently, maybe monthly or weekly, it's putting more wear and tear on the components of that truck.
Yeah.
If your truck is rated at 19,000 or 18,000 like this heavy-duty truck and you're pulling 10,000 weekly, it's not as stressed. So, the brakes are not quite as stressed, especially with an exhaust brake, right?
Yeah.
The axles are not as stressed, the spring are not, the truck will live longer, right? Because it's not as stressed overall.
Well, and you also have to factor in payload because, for example, we have a Sierra AT4X right now, and it's an off-road truck, so it's only rated to tow a little under 9,000 pounds.
This is the 1500.
Yeah, a 1500 Sierra AT4X, rated to tow a little under 9,000 pounds, which is still decent. But its payload is just barely over 1,000 pounds. So if you were hooked up to an almost 9,000 pound trailer,
you'll have no payload left.
Yeah, and if it needed to be you and Roman and a camera guy and all of our camera equipment, then you would be over.
Yeah.
Whereas this, we're going to be able to hook up our 10 to 14,000 pound trailer, whatever it is, and 3,000 pounds of payload, tongue weight plus all the guys and our gear in the truck.
There's still a lot of headroom there. Basically, there's about 10% of your trailer weight on the hitch.
Yep.
So if we're pulling 14,000 pounds, that means about 1,400 pounds are on the hitch, which means, we have 3,100 pounds of payload in this heavy-duty truck.
Yeah,
31
we got
minus,
a lot left over.
Yeah, we can invite some large dudes.
Don't have to go on a diet to do a trip with that trailer.
Yeah, so really there's a lot of room. Maybe you could put a camper in the back of this truck and still tow a sizable trailer as well.
And it's worth mentioning, too, that another part of our reason for going with the Chevy is because we want to mix it up a little bit when we've had certain brand trucks. And we've had Chevys in the past. You had a Chevy Colorado for the last more than a year.
Year and a half, yeah.
Yeah, a year and a half or so. So, we're no strangers to Chevy trucks, and we've had plenty of them in the past. But at the moment, we have the Cummins. We've got a Ranger Raptor.
We went on record to say we're buying a 2025 Ford Maverick.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. We've got a Maverick on the way. So
we have several classic Fords.
Yeah, we've got a lot of classic Fords. We've got an old Mustang. We've got a Ford Model A. We've got 2 Model Ts.
What is Tommy doing? Why is he collecting Model Ts?
They really are. Yeah,
Okay.
they're collecting quite a few. So, we wanted to mix it up a little bit because, we're into all 3 brand of trucks, as crazy as that sounds to some people.
Yes.
Yeah.
That came into play because we've had many Fords recently, and so that also played in our decision. But the main part of the decision was also price.
Yeah.
So this truck, we saw it on the lot. It had a bedliner. It had a gooseneck hitch. It had everything you see in the Trail Boss package. It had roof marker lights on top of the roof. So it had several options. Heated seats, but not ventilated seats.
Yeah.
No sunroof, which we really don't care, for this truck. At $78,000 was the sticker price. Now, we were able to get a few $1,000s off that price at this particular dealer. But if you talk about 91, where that Lariat Tremor was, and to 78 here, this is already, and I know it's not apples to apples because actually if you bought an XLT Tremor F-250, the price would be almost identical to this Trail Boss.
Yeah, you can spec them out very
Similarly,
much.
yes.
Yeah, very equivalently.
So just let's be fair there. But on that particular day, at that particular situation, we were facing a $13,000 difference between the 2 trucks. So on that particular day, and the fact that we owned really many Fords,
Yeah.
we wanted to try a different truck. We've never owned a Duramax as a company.
Yeah, you owned one personally.
I owned one personally
So it's
years
like you're
back.
coming home.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I used to have, if you've been watching TFL for some years, I used to have a 2002 Duramax 2500 Silverado, which was the first gen Duramax. And I kept it for like 8 years, eight or nine or, close to 10 years I kept it. So I do have some history with Duramax trucks.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe Andre will end up with this truck when the company's done with it. Are you scheming?
If you're listening to us, I'm doing an evil finger tap.
Yeah, he's maybe got some ideas.
Well,
Who knows?
I don't know. So I recently bought a Tundra because I've also never owned a Toyota pickup truck.
Yeah,
So personally speaking, I want to experience the Toyota truck territory there. So I might keep my Tundra for at least a year or two.
yeah.
So
It's not like it's going to go bad anytime soon.
it probably won't because it's a 2019 V8.
Yeah.
So it probably won't go bad. But those are some of the decisions we had to face. And here's another good thing. This truck, like I said, bedlined already. The Ford we saw wasn't bedlined
Yeah.
for some reason.
Oh,
Even at
interesting.
91,000, it wasn't bedlined.
You'd think they just throw it in.
And also, you might say, Andre, did you forget that the Super Duty is aluminum? No, I did not. But it just feels wrong to like throw gravel in a painted bed
Yeah.
and have it
I
be.
also like the grip of a bedliner.
Yeah,
I'd rather.
it just feels wrong to have a heavy duty truck with no bedliner.
Yeah.
Anyway, we could have bedlined it ourselves.
Sure. Yeah.
That's
it's
about
not a huge deal.
600 or
That's
700
a drop
bucks.
in the bucket if you're spending close to 100 grand.
Okay, so it's okay. We could have scheduled a Line X appointment or something, and spent another 700 bucks.
Yeah.
But the Ford also didn't have a gooseneck hitch. So we would have to make another appointment to schedule an install.
Whereas this is already set up.
This one was already set up. It had the wiring. It had, the outlet in the bed for extra, 400 watts of power. I had the trailer wiring, had a gooseneck hitch. It was bedlined. So basically, out of the box, we can break in the engine, right? Put a few hundred miles on it, and go to work immediately.
Yeah. So really, it had fundamentally more of the things we needed and less of the things that we don't. Because this, especially being a company truck, we don't need the huge sunroof, as nice as it is. We don't need the ventilated seats or anything that crazy. But having a truck that's already set up for pulling gooseneck trailers, one that is set up to still do some light off-roading, and one that was immediately available to us because for tax reasons, it benefits us a lot more to get this before the end of the year. So we went to our local dealer. This was a truck that made a lot more sense to us for all those reasons, plus the fact that, we wanted to bring a Chevy into the lineup to do some testing with.
So really, if you wanted a diesel, either F-250 Tremor or a diesel 2500 Silverado Trail Boss, you would have to spend a minimum sticker price of about $75. I just looked it up. So you could add a couple more options, of course, and get those trucks a little bit higher. And you could also negotiate the price because, inventories are back. This is not COVID anymore.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit more negotiating power, except we have to talk about RAM.
Yeah, so how
Now-
about pricing on the Rebel, on the diesel Rebel?
All right, so I'm just using my computer.
Oh, you timed out.
Sorry. I'm using my computer. I'm on a configurator for 2024 Ram Rebel Heavy Duty because, like we said, 2025s are not quite out yet.
Yep.
And if I build kind of the most simple Rebel HD, sorry, this font is so small. Why?
With a diesel?
With a diesel.
Good.
I just did, and it came out to 81.
Oh, wow.
So. But I just did the same thing with a Chevy Trail Boss.
How come it says 70?
Sorry.
Is that just not updated?
I haven't. Sorry.
We're having technical difficulties.
No. It's because it's hard to talk and configure.
Fair enough. Even with all the practice that you've had, it still takes some effort to work the configurator and
Sorry.
entertain at the same time.
I got confused. I'm already in the Rebel category. So a gasoline Rebel heavy duty
starts
is
at
71.
71.
70,905.
But we don't want gas.
But we weren't looking for gas. I have to select a diesel engine. So when I scroll down here, which I'm scrolling 1,000,
Oh,
the diesel, of course, is $9,700 for 2,500, which is, by the way, the same cost of a Duramax. The Duramax option is also around $9,800.
what about the standard output power stroke? I'm quizzing you right now.
It's about 10 grand.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, these engines are quite pricey
yeah.
as far as
100%.
diesels. But when I select that, look at my price of a Cummins Rebel.
Yeah.
80,700 without any
81.
options. So if I add like a bedliner to it, if I add a gooseneck hitch, if I add several items to it, I'll be well over 80,000.
And how does the Rebel stack up as far as off-road features?
It's very similar to the Trail Boss, actually. It does have limited slip. I can't remember if it's selectable locker, but it does have some sort of a locking rear differential. It has 20s. It has off-road tires. But it has a smaller bed, like we talked about.
Yep.
It has a slightly smaller cab because the cab is older on the Ram heavy-duty trucks. And it's not quite as fancy. It only has a 6-speed transmission, which is a 68 RFE, which is not bad. I mean, they've improved it.
Yeah.
I mean, it hasn't had a very good reputation in the years past.
Well, and we've had ours for
35,000 miles
in 3 years.
in almost 3 years.
And most of that has been either towing or off-roading.
Or drag racing.
Yeah, or
And
track racing.
and the transmission actually held up.
And we did that basically from, we put a couple hundred miles on it and then got right away to doing that. So
But-
they haven't been easy miles.
And
on
there
it.
is another but here. The Ram trucks are really the 2500s. They're limited at 10,000 gross vehicle weight rating, which means they don't have a lot of payload. Like our Bighorn Cummins 2500 has about 2,200 pounds of payload, which is about 1,000 less than that Ford or the Chevy.
Yeah, it's like that whole Sierra less.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think
1,500.
if Ram marketing and engineering teams are listening to us right now, they really, I think, need to take a careful look at this because they need to have different ratings, different suspension systems. They need to bring their payloads way up, right, to match where GM and Ford are. And they need to match maybe the efficiencies, with maybe more sophisticated transmissions.
And this is what we're excited to see when the new Rams come out. Hopefully, these are all things that they're addressing because, this truck is definitely prime for an update. That's what we want to see. We'll be really excited to test it out one way or another, whether we end up buying one, which, again, fingers crossed and toes crossed and everything, that we will. That's some of the stuff that we want to find out. But it really seems like if you're going for an off-road trim of a truck and you really care about the off-road capability, that the Tremor might probably be the best value, having that selectable rear locker.
Yeah, and
a
also
limited
larger
slip in the
tires.
front. Yeah.
And the larger tires, which means a little bit more ground clearance. I mean, it may be just half an inch or an inch, but everything matters, right, when you're really pushing it.
Yeah.
And so I would say pound for pound, dollar for dollar, maybe an F-250 XLT Tremor might be the winner.
Best value.
Might be the winner here
Yeah.
as far as the equipment it offers and also the capability it offers. Like you said, we've just been buying a lot of Fords recently.
Yeah. And again,
So-
for the reasons discussed, the Chevy made sense for us, especially because the trucks that were immediately available to us, Chevy was more affordable, more spec'd to what we need to use it for, and we need it before the end of the year.
Yeah, and we need to film it. And we already filmed it once.
Yeah.
You and I did a Denver 100 efficiency test, a heavy duty versus half ton with the same identical box trailers. So you could watch that at alltfl.com. I was a little surprised because I thought the two would be equivalent in efficiency, but I was wrong,
Yeah.
quite wrong.
Yeah, and the smaller truck is not only smaller in displacement, which does make a difference because it's not like we were using the maximum capability.
We
of
weren't
even
at the
the
maximum
3-liter.
weights. Yeah.
No, it's not a ton of weight. And the truck itself, I know the trailers are both tall, but at least the Sierra 1500 itself was a little bit lower profile. So
And
maybe
actually,
that makes some difference.
So yeah, I would say if we talked about 4,000-pound trailers, but I would say if your use case is to like 7,000 or 8,000 and below,
yeah.
a 1,500 makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Because a 1,500 is easier to live with every day. It's maybe less expensive to maintain on some levels, with certain features. Even though diesel takes more money, of course, to maintain the diesel. And you could maybe spec it cheaper.
Yeah.
A half ton might be a little bit cheaper, depending on which one you choose.
Maybe.
Right? Because the AT4X AV edition
we have,
the top of the line truck was also 88,000.
Yeah, that's
right?
a press loan that GM sent us to do some testing with. It's a really nice truck, also gorgeous, and a super
Dual
nice
lockers,
interior.
front and rear lockers.
Yeah, selectable front and rear lockers, skid plates, rock sliders, AEV steel
ventilated
bumpers,
seats, heated
massaging
seats,
heated seats in the rear. Oh my God, really nice truck.
It's like a luxury liner that goes off road,
but also quite a bit more expensive than our HD.
Yeah, but still, nonetheless, I think what we learned in that Denver 100 is that if you're towing not super heavy, if your use case is like 8,000 and below, get a 1,500. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. You could have more efficiency, you can have easier usability, but that's not what we wanted.
Yeah. Well, but also, too, if you are pulling even up to an 8,000-pound trailer, which we go well beyond quite often, but even up to an 8,000-pound trailer, you could basically, if your tongue weight is set up right and you want to stay within the payload, which we recommend you do.
Yes.
Basically,
you're out of payload.
Yeah, you could have you in the truck.
And maybe my dog.
Maybe. Yeah, and an 8,000-pound trailer. And as far as staying within payload, that would be it.
I have a 25-pound dog. So
okay.
maybe my dog,
fine,
Jack,
yeah.
Jack could come along with me.
If your dog was like Blaze.
Yeah, Blaze weighs 95 pounds, we learned this morning.
This morning, yeah, we checked.
we learned how much.
For this podcast, we checked.
Burmese dog, Tommy's and Roman's dog, weighs 95 pounds.
Yeah.
But my pup weighs 25 pounds, so I could bring him
easily
with me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a drop in the bucket.
So I'm looking forward to this. I really want to do a night gauntlet with our new heavy-duty Trail Boss. I'm going to push it. I'm not going to go easy on it this time.
Nice.
I'm going to push it probably as much. It's on the gooseneck, it's rated at 19,100, and I want to come close to that.
Yeah, so for that amount, we'll have to borrow a trailer and probably a piece of equipment from Denver East Machine Company or something.
Denver East Machinery, I think Alan and team could help us out. They have a gooseneck trailer, heavy-duty trailer.
And they've got some seriously heavy equipment.
Yeah, and if I need to put something that weighs about 10,000 pounds on this trailer, that's like peanuts for them. Because they carry, things that weigh 20, 30, 40, 50,000 pounds daily.
Yeah.
So on some of their trailers. So that's coming up very soon, hopefully within a couple of weeks. And by the way, we do have our latest Way Safe hitches. You and I used them on our Denver 100 loop.
Yeah, and I also used them over the weekend to get my project car back to my house.
Yeah, and they're very lightweight, right? It's very easy to use. So way-safe.com/TFL is where you could find these latest hitches. And also they have gooseneck hitches too.
Yeah, which is really cool. And you said the gooseneck hitches also have the scales built into them, right?
Uh-huh.
Which is really cool because if you're trying to figure out what your tongue weight is, get an idea of that, it's really nice to have. Like for the project car that I was putting on a trailer over the weekend, it doesn't have a motor in it. So I had to push the car further forward because there's not nearly as much weight, obviously, on the nose of the car. And so I had to bring it basically to the very front of the trailer, and I was able to use the scale to get an idea of how much weight I was putting on it because I wasn't positioning the car where I usually would if it did have a motor.
Yeah, and so I'm showing, if you're watching us at TFL Talk channel, I'm showing one example of their gooseneck ball hitch from WaySafe with the scale built in.
Yeah.
So, and it's actually, the scale is more important for a gooseneck or a fifth wheel application. They just have a gooseneck right now, than anything else because that trailer itself is very heavy. So it's really kind of hard to judge. When you step back, because I've been doing this for 13 years, sometimes I can eyeball it a little bit and
Sure.
kind of tell.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult because, like you said, if you move your load on the trailer just a few inches forward or backwards, you can affect the tongue weight quite a lot.
Yeah.
So having that gauge built into the hitch, it's kind of foolproof. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to, be a scientist.
It's really nice. The other nice things about their hitches, and not just these, but the regular bumper pull hitches that they've got, is that they're aluminum construction, so they're super light, really easy to adjust. So that, plus the fact that they're still rated for a lot of
heavy loads.
Yeah, a lot of towing capability.
So I'm on their page right now, and their bumper pull hitches, aluminum ones, are rated up to 21,000, which takes care of most of the heavy duty space.
Yeah, that's
Not.
more
I
than
mean,
our
there may be
Duramax
some.
can pull.
Yeah, there may be some use cases where it's a little bit above that, but our Duramax is not rated at 21.
Yeah,
So
it's good for us.
So these hitches are plenty capable. Their 2.5-inch receivers are rated at 18.5.
Yeah, which I guess
And
it would
that's
be a
what we
2.5
have.
on our Duramax. Yeah.
Yeah, and a 3-inch, like an F-350 dually hitch, is rated to 21,000. So, and by the way, I just noticed there's sales going on right now.
Oh, sweet. Right on.
So
Christmas gifts.
Christmas gifts. Everybody go out and buy a hitch.
Black Friday.
So, so those are kind of the decisions we had to make, and I'm psyched that we have an extra, additional truck to test.
Yeah.
And
Always good when we've got a new diesel HD around.
By the way, we got a lot of emails from you guys. Thank you very much. You guys are wondering if we're selling our Trailhound Ram Cummins truck. Somebody put a deposit on it.
Oh, right on.
One of our viewers, thank you very much, reached out to us a few days ago or maybe a couple weeks ago. And sorry. So right now, we're not selling it this year, but we have a deposit on this truck. So in January, if everything works out, it's sold.
Yeah.
So please stop emailing us because our inboxes are
Overflowing. Yeah, but
overflowing with some messages.
it'll be sad to see that truck go, but now we've
we
got
built it
a
up
new
so
truck.
much.
It's an awesome setup. It's super useful, but now we've got another truck that can step in its place, and then hopefully again we'll be seeing a new Ram coming fairly soon. Because anytime there's a new truck on the market, we get excited.
Yeah, and by the way, we also buy trucks any vehicle for long term because we want to experience what you guys experience. And recently, as we all know, there are a lot of recalls.
Yeah.
Right. So as we experience recalls, we'll be communicating that to you guys.
Absolutely.
So, the severity of recalls or any issues we're having, or if, it takes forever. For example, sometimes you go to a dealership for a recall and they don't have the parts.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case may be. So we'll be communicating all that stuff as we always do.
Yeah, we like to document the whole process, not just the pretty stuff.
And when we change oil, we test our oils too.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Yeah, it is cool.
Sometimes it's interesting to see. And you know what's shocking and what a lot of people hate, and I think you hate as well?
I kind of do, but I know where you're going.
So by the way, I pay for the test myself when I send a sample of oil in. So this is not a sponsorship. This is not something like, we're sponsored by oil testing companies. They send me a report back, and almost every time for every truck I sent in, I sent it for my F-150, I sent it for my Colorado, I sent it for the Cummins, I sent it for a variety of trucks recently that we had. They always say, Andre, you should change your oil less frequently.
Yeah, which is such a strange thing to hear, especially coming from a more old school mindset with how these oils used to age. And these modern fluids are pretty impressive from the sound of it. I still think playing it safe, not a bad idea. I still will. But even, when a manufacturer tells you can go to, in some cases, 10,000 miles on your braking oil,
Yeah.
which sounds
scary.
to me, that sounds nuts.
Yeah.
But you've done exactly that as recommended by the manufacturer and then sent off the oil to be analyzed.
Which is an independent company.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's not sending it to the manufacturer.
Yeah. And they say, your oil looks okay.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of with you. It feels strange.
Feels a little icky.
Especially we're towing trailers. We're doing hard work.
Yeah.
We're not just driving them, to your grocery store and back every time.
Yeah, but I guess the tolerances on modern engines and also
the
the
oils,
quality of modern oils
Are actually high.
apparently it's a fine thing to do. If you don't want to do it, I don't blame you.
Exactly. So this controversy, I
that's a
think,
little
will
tough.
continue
Yeah,
for
Sure.
some time.
plenty of people won't like hearing that.
All right. Well, as always, thank you for joining us on this. Thank you, Case, for being on this episode.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. So, once again, we'll give you more information about all of our trucks that we're testing, and we'll see you next time, next week.
Yeah.
See ya.